Good evening, my fellow friends, my fellow neighbors, and my fellow shining stars. They come in blue. Go figure. The next trolley stop here is now. Welcome back to the Summer of Magic and Miracles. Welcome back to Empowered Publicity. Welcome to an all-new edition of the Shining Star series here at episode number 10 here at Empowered Publicity. My name is Jonathan Masiulionis, the president here at Empowered Publicity. Thank you so much for spending some time with us wherever you are and wherever you may be. We're at the halfway point of July, but then again, do we really know what time it is? Do we really know what day it is? Do we really know what month it is? Everything is just totally blending in together. But for the statistical perspective, July the 15th, shortly after 7 o'clock Eastern time for all of our friends and neighbors and shining stars on the East Coast, for all of our friends and neighbors and shining stars on the West Coast, especially out in the San Diego, California area, we're shortly after 4 o'clock Pacific time. We really appreciate all of you joining us as we're continuing on with the 6-year anniversary celebration of Empowered Publicity. So for all of you who are spending some time with us here in our neighborhood this evening and this week, if you are being introduced to us for the first time, we really appreciate it in the process. And we're going to be talking about something very timely, very important. And yes, over just the course of these past several days alone, there's been a lot of magic. There's been a lot of miracles, hence the term Summer of Magic and Miracles. Tonight, we're going to be talking about stepping into your magnificence. Now, I can feel that many of you all across the country, all around the world, have actually been doing that, especially over the past several days. There has been this amazing shift that has been happening. Now, if you're wondering, well, how can I step into my magnificence? I've been kind of leading the same humdrum life over the course of the past several weeks or months or years or lifetimes. I'm going to pose 2 questions to you. Think about how different that your life could be if instead of fearing what you might lose, you were excited, you were curious about the unlimited potential of what might be gained. Think about that. Imagine what might be gained if you step into your magnificence with the belief that something beneficial and wondrous could happen. This is not gobbledygook. This is not hogwash. I think that those are 2 great words, gobbledygook and hogwash. We do it all here at Empowered Publicity. But one of our favorite neighbors, who has some roots here to the city of good neighbors here in Buffalo, where we still currently reside and hang our hat, is here to help us remember how to cross the border. Yes, we actually have to do it this way because we can't go from U.S. to Canada just yet, right? How to cross the border into the world of possibility and the unlimited potential of what is and what can be. One of our favorite neighbors, one of our favorite shining stars, life strategist, speaker, and the author of the groundbreaking book, one of my personal favorites, The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. We encourage all of you who are tuning in to head on over to Amazon.com. You can purchase your copy of The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. We have the links below, in addition to where you can purchase your copy on Amazon, Jim's official website, where you can stay connected with him. You can learn exactly what is a life strategist. We're going to be talking about all of this and then some with Jim Phillips here, our featured guest on episode number 10 of the Shining Star series. Jim, great to have you here in our neighborhood. I've been really looking forward to this for some time. Thank you for joining us here this evening and this week. Oh,
it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it as well. After all you said, I can't wait to hear what's going to be part of the conversation.
Well, this is, I always, one of the things that I really love about the Shining Star series episodes that we do here at Empowered Publicity, I really feel that we do our part to tap into the collective and really share something, not even just beneficial, but something that's very much in tune with what's happening across the country, around the world, what it is that we're stepping into. And it feels that just, Yes, for all of the astrology buffs or just people that are closet astrologers, Mercury retrograde is over with. We can now feel that we're moving forward, but it feels like this has been something that's been a long time coming, right? You know, us truly stepping into our magnificence, not just saying that we're going to do it, but we're actually doing it right now. Before we talk about how to step into our magnificence, you have such a fascinating story. And for just a long period of time, you have remained grateful and grounded and humble. Like you're a very salt of the earth kind of gentleman. And we always love to be able to have the guests that join us here at Empowered Publicity to talk about what actually brought them into this perspective of their life and the work for those of our friends and neighbors and shining stars who are wondering, okay, Jim Phillips, he's got this great book. He's a clean-cut guy. He's got a great haberdasher. I want to know more about Jim Phillips. Could you share with our listeners and viewers and our friends and neighbors exactly what drew you to doing this specific line of work and helping people and being of service to others?
Well, Jonathan, the first thing that I would say is that I have had an extraordinarily ordinary life. There really hasn't been any I shouldn't say that. There's been a couple of events in my life that maybe not everybody has had. But for the most part, my life has been just a life of living day to day, trying to accomplish and achieve whatever it is that I could accomplish and achieve. I've had my whole life, or at least as long as I can remember, I've had an extreme interest in human potential. And within that, it's not even just what am I capable of doing, but the big question is, why am I here? And then the bigger question, what's the purpose of any of us being here? And when you put it in the context of what we're going through right now, it makes the question loom even larger, because what we see across the planet right now just makes no sense. The way that we're interacting with each other, the way we're treating each other, the things that are being said, the things that are being done. And when we go through a period like this, and we've gone through them before, but when we go through a period like this, that really raises my antenna, so to speak, to really hone in on the answer to those questions. Now, I'm going to backtrack a second, and I'm going to say that how I got to where I am, there was a realization that I had, and I was 13 years old, and I've told this story before, and it's in my books. I'm sure you are familiar with it as well. But I was sitting in church one day, and I was 13 years old. I was sitting in there with my parents, and I do have siblings, but I don't know why this particular day I was the only one there with my parents, and I was sitting in between them. I was born and raised Christian, which doesn't mean anything. I'm just saying that because of the way the church was set up. And I remember sitting there, and I was looking to the front. The minister was up there giving his sermon, and being 13 years old, I was fidgeting, and I really didn't want to be there. I wanted to be out playing ball or be with my friends or do something like that. But I remember thinking that something was wrong. Maybe that's not the right word. Something was off. It just didn't feel completely right to me. And it had nothing to do with belief or anything like that. It just felt off. And so as I was sitting there thinking, I'm looking around, and I'm getting a little fidgety. I look over to the left, and the people were standing there with the offering basket, and it had yet to be sent around. So I was just watching them and watching the front. And then it was all of a sudden, up here to the right-hand side of my head, was this crystal clear voice. It was very deep. And the voice said, "You're going to be doing this someday." And I jerked my head up, and I looked at my parents. Neither one of them made any motion that they had heard anything or seen anything. Nobody else moved. Of course, now I'm thinking to myself that I'm absolutely crazy because nobody else responded to it or reacted to it. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, that's ridiculous, because I'm just sitting here thinking about how off this feels. And this would be about as far from what I see myself doing as anything imaginable. I can't see myself standing in front of a congregation leading a church. And then it was a couple minutes later, that same voice said, "You're going to be doing it differently." And I said, okay, doing what differently? Because again, I'm not going to be standing in front of a church. I'm not going to be leading a congregation. And this just isn't where I see myself. So that was when I was 13. And so I held that. I never told anybody. In fact, my family never knew that story until my book came out. And I'm 66 years old now. So that's a long time for me to hold that in, although I did share it with a couple of close friends along the way. But that was always in the back of my mind. So when something would happen or something would come up that would put me in front of people, that was always my thought. Well, is this that thing that I'm supposed to be doing? And is this me doing whatever that was, doing it differently? So I got more interested in speaking and writing, and I started doing training programs. I've been in the real estate business for a really long time. I was fortunate to travel around the world to be able to give training programs and keynote presentations and that sort of thing. So I've had that opportunity, and all this has led me to where I am right now, but with the same thought in mind that there's got to be something to life that I don't know yet, that I'm trying to figure out as to why I'm here. And anytime that I would speak, I was terrified. So it was one of those things like, why do you keep putting yourself in that position of being terrified? Because I never felt comfortable. But then I would get great responses from people. They would say that what I was sharing with them was beneficial to them. I even had one woman who came up to me after a presentation, and it was 2 years after she had heard me speak once before. And she came up to the front. There's a whole bunch of other people, but she came up to the front and my eyes caught hers, and she looked at me and she said, I heard you speak 2 years ago, and what you said saved my daughter's life. And she turned around and walked away. And I didn't have a chance to have any further conversation with her. So I don't know what I might have said or done. I don't know who she is. I don't know where she is. But that made me realize that anybody in our lives at any point in time can have a dramatic impact or be or have a dramatic influence on other people's lives. And that's why it's always important for us to always be, you mentioned stepping into our magnificence. I think our magnificence is the limitless aspect of us. So if we can live from that limitless aspect of us, where nothing is impossible, but everything is possible and everything is given to us. If we can live from that, then anytime we interact with somebody, whether we say or do anything that might be profound, just the fact that we're operating from that true part of ourselves is going to impact everybody around us. So all my interests have been around all of these types of topics, and met some incredible people, continue to meet incredible people, and it just continues to snowball. And I will also say, and I think this is important for people to understand, I don't feel that anything that I have or anything that I do is extraordinary. And I also don't think that anything that I have or anything that I do is not also available to everybody else. Even anybody that might have what most would call an incredible gift, whether you can say it's clairvoyance, you could say it's healing gifts or whatever it is. If one person has it, everybody is capable of it. And I think we just need to open ourselves to that possibility, but also be open to whatever it is that resonates more with who we are and how we want to experience and express ourselves in the world.
It's eloquently put, Jim, and I feel that, over the course of these past 4 months, and it's interesting, I have to share this. I actually went for a walk just a couple hours before we went live tonight for this month's episode of the Shining Star series, and I passed by a yoga studio, and it felt like it was a time capsule, because I'm not sure if anyone's been in that studio or just anyone's even walked in the door in 4 months. They had a poster for an event that was supposed to have happened like March 13th. And like, I kind of walk past that every day. It's like, and now I kind of know how, Doc Emmett L. Brown and Marty McFly felt when they went back to the future. But I share this because, things over the past 4 months, people are starting to look at the word life in a little bit of a different way. People are starting to evaluate what life is, what has meaning to them, what has value to them, how they want to spend their time, how they want to spend their life. So I have 2 questions on this, but the first thing to be able to ask, if you can share your thoughts with our friends and neighbors, with our listeners and viewers, when it comes to how life has shifted, not just pre-COVID, post-COVID sort of thing, but how do you feel just really people just, from your work with your clients, from the blogs that you do, just from really keeping your own feet to the ground and your ears, your eyes, your heart open, how do you really feel that life has shifted over these past 4 months? And it might not necessarily be from that negative perspective, because people might say, okay, well, there was the stay-at-home orders and certain states are rolling back and so on and so forth. Depending upon where you're at on your path, there really is something magical and beautiful that's happening, but you have to look. You have to be paying attention in order to be able to understand it. So really, what's your viewpoint on how life really is different now than what it was 4 months ago?
There's two things for me. One, every day of our individual lives, we're given opportunities to see life in a different way. And as you said, it is about being aware. It's about paying attention. I mean, really, that's what being in the present moment is all about. It's about being aware of everything that's happening around you and within you. We also have the collective, which is humanity as a total. And we get to a point like we are in right now, but let's just go back 4 months and this whole, what I call the great pause, because first time in my lifetime, the whole planet has stopped, basically, where everybody has been affected by it in one way, shape, or form. And there was this collective opportunity to just take a deep breath. I think what happens is the universe, it gets to a point, the universe, world, God, whatever you want to call, whatever the supreme force being might be. But I think it gets to the point where we're not paying enough attention individually, that we all of a sudden collectively get smacked upside the head. And then we're given this opportunity to take that deep breath, to reassess, reevaluate. And what you were saying, I absolutely agree with. It's about prioritizing our lives, really saying, this is what's important to me. This other stuff is just a bunch of BS, and I don't need to deal with it. So life has shifted in this way for me. Life has shifted in that there's a greater awareness. We are seeing more and more things taking place across the planet. You can even look at the protests that are going on. You can look at what's happening with governments around the world. You can look at, whatever. It's all going through this shift at this time. I look at it as being a major cleansing. And, people will say that life is getting worse. Well, we all know that when something is about to happen that's really great, you've got to go through that dark period first before everything is allowed to explode, which is what's happening here. All the stuff that's been beneath the surface, that's been festering, is now coming to the surface so it can be dealt with. And it can only be dealt with when it's acknowledged. And when people take responsibility for their individual lives, and then humanity taking responsibility collectively. So to me, that's where we are. And that's what I believe is happening. Now, interestingly enough, you also have to get to a tipping point where there's enough people that are taking full advantage of it, that are engaged in consciously engaged in change, that creates a tipping point. Then we start to see it go more and more towards that. I don't like to use the words positive and negative, but I'm going to use the word positive because everybody understands it. Moving more towards the positive, or the way we would like to see life be for everybody, where there's love, joy, happiness, peace. Everybody has food, clothing, shelter. All the things that we all say life is about and that we all want for ourselves and also for our family and friends and, of course, anyone else across the planet. So I think that's where we are right now. And I think this time to me is different too, because I'm 66. So I've been around for a while. I've been through different periods. I live outside Washington, D.C. I lived here in 1968. So I was here when the Martin Luther King and the riots and everything else took place, during that time frame. This is different. It's just, it appears to have affected more people in a more profound way, causing more people to take action that had not taken action before. And I think it's as a result of this great pause where people are reassessing what life is about to them. Does that answer your question, or did I get onto a ramble bit?
No, it 100%. I feel that this is, again, one of the things that I really love about the Shining Star series here at Power Publicity is, not only do we place the spotlight on those who are truly making a difference in their communities across the country, around the world, that are really bringing in much needed light, much needed energy, much needed heart in the process, but we can go deep here on the Shining Star series. So we are very much doing that, with our featured guest here this month, Jim Phillips, life strategist, speaker, and the author of the groundbreaking Full Expression. It is now available. You can head on over to Jim's official website, livinginfullexpression.com, or you can head on over to amazon.com. We tend to talk a little bit about children's books here at Empowered Publicity, but one of the things that I do like about inspirational and spiritual books, sometimes they can be a little smaller. So I just realized, just taking a look at the screenshot here, right? It's like my head and the book can fit in the shot, which is fantastic, right? And we got everything color coordinated. As you can see, our friends and neighbors and shining stars, we're matching the energy of the book in every way, shape, and form. Chapter 2, before we talk about the purpose of life, when people take a look at your book and they say, living in full expression, right? It's kind of a lot to be able to digest. People will say, all right, the key to life, right? I think that there's people out there that says, what are the lotto numbers? Or how can I, find the love of my life? Or how can I drop the 50 pounds? Like those are those magical questions that there's not necessarily one universal answer to. And it takes time, energy, effort, internal work, you name it. So what does it mean? Could you give kind of like a layman's term definition of what it means to live your life in full expression? And what do you feel, if there is a specific one or a few things that come to mind when it comes to the keys to living a peaceful, balanced, aligned, and love-filled life?
All right, the first thing I want to mention is that the title of the book, The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression, the word life is the acronym for living in full expression. So that is the key. Living in full expression means to live in full expression of your truth, live in full expression of your magnificence, being completely open and honest with yourself. You made a comment a minute ago, how do I find the love of my life? You become the love of your life, and then the other person who would become the love of your life will find you, or you'll find them. It's got to come from that perspective first. And of course, there's too many people who will say, well, that's selfish. And it's not selfish. That's the reason we're here, is to gain a greater understanding of who we are and what we're all about. And then as we do that, we serve as an example to other people of who they are and what they're all about. And then that creates, in my opinion, the peace and everything else that we're looking for. But the answer to your other question, and these are very simple answers, but I dare anybody to try to tell me that it isn't the answer. So how do we find peace and love and joy on the planet? You decide to. You decide that you're going to be peaceful. You decide you're going to be loving. You decide that you're going to be joyful, that you're going to embrace all the goodness that life has to offer. There's a banner on I think it's on my personal Facebook page that says, you are that which you seek. And I believe that wholeheartedly. So whatever it is that someone is seeking out of life that is of that joy, love, it's of heart, that's who we are. So that's what we're seeking. So it's a journey back to ourselves, to use the term that I think Campbell used in Joseph Campbell used in his book. But it's really that simple. Now, as humans, though, what we want a step-by-step program. We want somebody to tell us, okay, if you do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, then this is what you're going to get from it. Well, I have a program called the 7 Key Strategies to Life Mastery. So I can give that to people, but it's not a step-by-step program. It's strategies that people, I believe, if they employ them in their lives, they're going to start to see all the things that they desire to have in life become their life. And I'll give you the 7 strategies real quick without going into detail on it. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they just happen to come out that way. I did not lay it out. It's just the way that it was. It's awareness, it's belief, it is clarity and curiosity, it's discernment, it's engagement, it's faith, and it's gratitude. Those are the 7 key strategies. Now notice I didn't tell anybody how to use them, but those are the strategies. If you employ a strategy of awareness, and you pay attention to everything that's happening around you, you pay attention to your thoughts, you pay attention to your beliefs, you pay attention to your actions, what you're going to find is all the answers you need are already there. We're just not tapping into it. When you pay attention to your thoughts and your beliefs, you realize that a lot of the beliefs you hold, number one, are not true, and number two, they probably were never yours to begin with. So what is it you really believe? The clarity is, well, how can I become clear, number one, on who I am, what it is that I have a strong desire to do and a strong desire to be, The curiosity is how we get there. You become curious about a lot of different things. You become curious about life, and you gain clarity on that. Discernment is, what do I do with all this information that I have in front of me now? How do I know what's right and what's wrong, what's true, what's not true? And that comes from our heart, in my opinion, where that is our center for discernment, where we really take that information in, and we do it through our feelings and our emotions, and we all have a sense of when something is true, but we have to trust that. That's part of faith, is trusting in that. But then you get to discernment, then you get engagement. That's actively engaging in life. That's taking the action that you have to take. It's not about having this wonderful vision of how you want life to unfold, sitting in your leather armchair waiting for it to happen. It doesn't work that way. Now, it's wonderful to have a vision of what you want, but here's how the universe works, in my opinion. You do what you can, and when you do what you can, fully engaged in it, you're sending a message to the universe that you're all in. And then the universe comes in and says, good job, Jim. I'm now supporting you. I'm behind you all the way. Now I'm going to do my share. And then all of a sudden, whatever it is you desire to have happen, happens. But it's got to be engagement. That's the co-creator aspect of life. And then, of course, you go from engagement to faith. Faith is faith as we know it to be, where you have faith in something, knowing that whether you have evidence of it or not, it's going to take place. But I also use faith totally differently, and this gets back to the engagement aspect. When you engage in something, we can only do as much as we can do, which, going back to the original definition of stepping into our magnificence, is limitless. There isn't anything we can't do, so there's always something that we can be doing to further our engagement in life and our interaction with other people and whatever it is that we're trying to create. One of the biggest challenges that we have is that we'll have this idea of the way we think things are supposed to be, and we do everything we can to make that be the outcome. Well, that's one outcome out of an infinite number of outcomes, and then we get ticked off because it doesn't turn out the way that we wanted it to. Well, faith, in the way that I use it, is another acronym, and it stands for fully allow it to happen. And that means to get out of the way. Be clear on what you want. Take action on what you want. Trust in the process. Trust in yourself. Trust in the universe. Don't hold on to whatever it is you say you want to create so tightly that you put blinders on and you're no longer aware of everything else that's around you. Because the universe, in my opinion, will always create something much greater and grander than we could ever imagine. And then, of course, the G in there is gratitude. It's being grateful for it just being here, grateful for the process, grateful for the opportunity to interact with other people, grateful for really everything that life presents to us.
The visual that actually comes to mind, Jim, is that, we tend to think that here's our plan. It's so great. It's so mighty. We know everything. We know exactly how everything's going to happen. We know the timing. We know everything. And then there's God's plan. Now, if you're not comfortable with using the term God, it can be the divine plan, the great unfolding, the universal plan, whatever terminology that you actually feel comfortable with. And I feel that right now, what we're happening right now, there is a release of individual and collective control that's happening. Right? Because, people are either people are really letting go now, or they're trying to clutch. And even just, our friends and neighbors and our shining stars that are tuning in, right? Like just going like this, I'm kind of getting like a vision of like one of the evil Disney princesses, like, I'll get you, my pretty, the Bad Witch and the Wizard of Oz sort of thing. Like, we're trying to clutch. When you clutch onto something, you can only hold on to it for so long, but it goes back to Dr. Wayne Dyer, when he was talking about in his book about the Tao Te Ching, that life is about water, that it's about this softness, that when you splash your hands through the water, it just flows right through you. And we're no longer, if we're choosing to, we're no longer claiming ownership. And we even talked about this in the green room before we hopped on board tonight, that we're doing our part now to no longer claim ownership to anyone or to anything, and trust the fact that everyone comes into our lives how they're meant to. They exit our lives right now, and that we have more freedom. We have more liberation. It's such a good feeling, part of the Mr. Rogers-ism, if I may, that when we just let things come in and out, we still take the time, we do our work, we put out the good energy, we serve other people, we help other people, we love ourselves, we do all of that, and then just allow everything else to unfold as it is. I feel that some of these things we might have already covered in terms of my next question, but there might be some things that you didn't mention that if you can kind of further clarify on, that when it comes to we are our magnificent selves already. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to just be anyone other than who we are, right? And, and even Mr. Rogers reminded us each and every time on The Neighborhood, right? He said, I like you just the way that you are, right? That just you have inherent value and worth just for you being you. But we can go out into society, we can mingle with other people, as part of our, familial bloodlines, the old storylines that we told ourselves. There's these blocks that we can just subconsciously create for ourselves. What do you feel, if you can share with our friends and our neighbors, our listeners and viewers, what do you feel are the blocks that are preventing people from stepping into their authentic selves?
Well, a phrase came into my mind when you were talking about people being who they are. Think about it from this perspective. You cannot be that which you are not. It's impossible. It's impossible for any of us to be other than ourselves. And yet, as you were talking about, Jonathan, we see other people and we have a perspective of them being better, having a better life, having better relationships, having all these things that we feel that we want. And yet we do it only from our perspective. And our perspective is our experiences, it's our thoughts and our beliefs. And so we're looking at somebody else and through our filter of all of that. What we don't know is what that person went through or is currently going through. And yet we still make a judgment that somehow their life is better than ours, and my life, if I'm speaking about me, is less than that. I contend that every life that everybody lives, regardless of what happens during that life, was perfectly suited for that person to gain the experience of life their soul intended for them to gain. No matter what it is, it doesn't matter. In fact, I might get myself into trouble with this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway because it came up. One of the things that I ask in some of my presentations is, I'd say, I was born in Buffalo, New York. I'm a white guy. I was born in Buffalo, New York. I'm born in a middle-class family. I've done really well during my life. Why was I born into the United States, where we have the freedoms we have, as a white man versus other people who were born maybe in other countries, third world countries, or even in this country as a minority that might be experiencing a totally different life? Why is that? And my answer to that came from one of my early morning walks, which is when I connect and I ask questions and I get what I believe is divine guidance on this. And the answer that I got from that is everybody is born into the body, the life, the culture, the everything that they are intended to have as their experience in this world. So we tend to think that one way of life is better than another. Well, if every life gives each person or each soul the absolute life experience they're supposed to have, no life is better than another. Yes, the appearance is that one life might be more difficult than another, but it doesn't mean that that difficult life isn't more beneficial to that soul for whatever that soul is here to experience. And I know that's hard for some people to see because we have the experience, we see the pain, we see the suffering, we see all the other things that are taking place. But I don't believe God to be judgmental. So I don't believe God said, okay, Jim, I'm going to put you in the white man's body living in the United States and put you in a middle class or upper middle class family because you're deserving of it more so than somebody else. So I'm going to put in a situation that appears to be more dire. I don't believe that's the way it works. I believe everything is perfectly suited for each individual life. And it's a hard conversation when I talk to people about it because it's just from my understanding and my perspective. And I'm not trying to convince other people that's what it is. I'm just sharing that's my belief and my experience, and that's the guidance that I get around it. And honestly, it's the only thing that makes sense to me. because nothing else does. I can't imagine that we're here to do the things that we're doing to each other. I can't imagine that's the purpose of this. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I feel that if we allow ourselves, and really that word resonates very strong, that when we allow ourselves to just embrace ourselves for who we are, like, people I'm sure have asked you a question like this. They've asked me questions like this, like, how do I connect with my guidance? How to connect with my intuition, right? And it's a matter of dissolving the distortion. It's a matter of just, removing anything from your energy, your life that just doesn't really resonate with you. And eventually there is this clarity that you have where as they say that, when the student is ready, the master will appear, or something along the lines of that, right? And I feel that, things are becoming, and they can become even more so, more efficient, smoother in the process. It's not to say that life is going to be rainbows and gumdrops, right? I still think that someone should write a book called Rainbows and Gumdrops. Someone head on over to Amazon and see if someone wrote that book. I think that'd be a great title of a book, right? But the difference, I think, between the before and now is that, we're fully confident in the fact that we have everything that we need right now to be able to move forth in terms of our next steps in the process. Again, for those.
I want to make another point.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
You just made the comment that people question how you might connect to your guides or your source, or they'll make a comment, I can't do this, or I'm not having. Here's the truth. You cannot disconnect from who you are. You cannot. It is impossible. We are all part of source. You can never be disconnected from it. It's absolutely impossible. The problem is people believe they're disconnected. And when you believe in something that strongly, or you see it in other people and you say, oh, they're special, they have this ability to do whatever, then we're setting up those barriers that make it more and more difficult for us. We also don't recognize when we're being given that guidance, or if we do see something that appears like it could be guidance, we just kind of slough it off and say, oh, that's just a coincidence, or that's silly, or that's, if it's a voice you hear in your head and it happens to be your voice, you'll say, that's just me talking to myself. Well, I questioned that one time, because the voices that I hear in my head, it is my voice. And so I asked during one of my morning walks, why is it that I hear me? And the answer was because it's the voice you're most familiar with, and it's the voice you're probably more willing to listen to. Mm-hmm. And so I just accepted that. And so, and here's the other part of it. When somebody is trying to work through a difficult situation, it doesn't matter what it is, and they just ask for guidance, and the guidance doesn't have to be some long prayer. It's like, what the hell can I do now? I mean, that's all you have to say, and pay attention. Whatever you get from that, and we hear the silly stories about a truck will drive by with a panel on the side of it that'll have a word or a phrase that could be the answer to whatever your question is, and we'll just go, okay, that's kind of interesting. If we pay attention to it and we accept that and we start to explore it and say, well, what was that all about? What could that possibly mean for me? That's us giving notice to the universe, if you will, that now we're paying attention. And then it intensifies. And then it becomes much easier to allow that connection to provide us the information that's always been there. It doesn't ever go away. It's always there. I just found that my best time is early morning walks. When I intentionally go out, I connect, I ask questions. But I also, this is one of the things that I do every morning so that I'm aware of this happening throughout the course of the day. I say, what is required of me that the I am that I am can experience and express through me and as me? So that's always, it's just opening myself to whatever is going to allow whatever it is that's in me, the divine source, the divine aspect of me, whatever is in me. What can I do as this physical body, Jim Phillips, to allow that which I am to fully experience and express itself through me, through this physical body, but also as me? And then things show up, and then I make decisions. That's where the discernment comes in. That's where the clarity comes in. That's where awareness comes in. It's all part of that, but it never goes away.
Again, for those of you who are just tuning in, our friends and neighbors, our shining stars, our listeners and viewers, episode number 10 of the Empowered Publicity Shining Stars series. Our featured guest here this month, life strategist, speaker, and the author of the groundbreaking release, The Key to Life Living in Full Expression, which, by the way, you know that a book is groundbreaking when you go through it, you underline it, you star it, that this book, kind of like turns into, not to sound sacrilegious, but it kind of turns into like a go-to book, like, the Bible or something, right? I'm mentioning this to Jim now on air as well, but one of the things that, looking back on, to kind of give a little shift, a little bit more oomph to what it is we were talking about, but to briefly sidetrack, with Empowered Publicity celebrating its 6-year anniversary this month, to really be able to have the blessing and the good fortune of coming across people like Jim on my path, because, I'm a human being as well too. There's a soul that's in this body, right? And, yes, by trade, I am a publicist, but I feel that the universe has blessed me with angels that have come across my life and onto my path that have helped me to move through some of my own challenges and difficulties and obstacles and problems and get through to the other side. And I actually credit Jim and his work and this book, The Key to Life Living in Full Expression, for helping me to live my life in full expression right now. So if you want to learn how to live your life in full expression, you can head on over to Jim's official website. We've got the links below, livinginfullexpression.com. And of course, while on Amazon, you can leave a 5-star review in the process if you feel guided to do so. I love here on the Shining Stars series to be able to provide tangible information for our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, to be able to extract. So people now know that we are magnificent already, that we have magnificence inside of us. And it does help, because if we are moving through those distortions, those illusions, those old stories, as Wayne Dyer would say in his PBS special, in his book Wishes Fulfilled, it's kind of like that old Morse code. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I am stupid. I am poor. I am unhealthy. That same old, same old. What are some ways, some suggestions that you can share with our listeners and viewers and our friends and neighbors to be able to step into their magnificence, especially right now, amid the current climate, where some people might say, how is that possible? There's all this happening right now in the world. How can I truly be my authentic self? How can I be magnificent right now when all of this is happening around me? What would you like to say when it comes to that to our friends and neighbors, our listeners and viewers, ways to help you step into your magnificence amid the current climate, Jim?
Well, I think the first thing is to acknowledge what you just said, that we are magnificent beings. There isn't anything we have to become. We already are that. Now it's a matter of getting out of our own way and allowing that which we are to be fully experienced and expressed through us and as us. It is, well, you mentioned limiting thoughts and beliefs, and that is the biggest challenge for most of us. The ones that come up all the time: I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm not smart enough. I mean, anything that comes after I am that's a negative is going to be a limiting belief that somebody would hold. So what I always tell people to do is, whatever it is they're telling themselves, I'm not deserving of this. Well, why are you not deserving of this? I mean, really get them to drill down and answer the question. Well, why do you really believe that you're not deserving of this? And then they'll talk about all these things that happened when they were a kid, or something that happened here or there. Or their parents said that our family is this or that, and so they've taken in that information, and they've allowed that to be their identity. And you can further the question with that and say, well, just because that was what they said, why does that mean that's who you are? And have you ever had a situation where you got something more than what you thought you were deserving of? And of course, everybody has. Something wonderful will happen in our lives, regardless of how difficult life has been. There's always these wonderful experiences we have that, unfortunately, we allow, like you were talking about the water, we allow those to kind of flow through our fingers, but we grasp onto the more challenging, difficult ones, and we allow that to become our identity. But I think it's a matter of recognizing that we have had these wonderful experiences, that we have had these opportunities that have been given to us because we are deserving. The fact that they're given to us is because we're deserving. If we weren't deserving, well, here's another part of my belief. If we weren't deserving, we wouldn't be here. There would be no reason to be here. So you have to be deserving. You have to be worthy. You have to be. It's so hard for me to think about it from the negative perspective because I'm so far on the other side. But it first is awareness. Become aware of why you're saying that about yourself. Second part of that is what you're saying about yourself true, and is what you're saying about yourself actually your belief, or did somebody else say it? The next part of that is, when have you had an experience in your life that shows the complete opposite of what you're saying you can't have or that you are not? And everybody has a situation. So if they have a situation they can hold on to, you say, okay, well, what happened during that period of time? What happened during that particular experience that you allowed it to be, that you allowed yourself to be deserving, or you allowed yourself to accept whatever it is? And so we have to reframe things. We have to, and of course, depending upon how deeply ingrained these beliefs are, it's not like you're going to flip the switch and it's gone. It's about working through that situation, but always once that limiting belief comes up, you have to catch it. So that's where awareness comes in again. It's about being aware of our thoughts and beliefs. When it comes up, if it's preventing you from doing something you have a strong desire to do, or if it's preventing you from being who you know you truly are, that's when we have to stop and say, no, that's not true. That's not me. This is the belief that I hold about myself. And so you create a new belief around it, and you use that as your default as opposed to that negative one. I mean, so that's just kind of a simple process that somebody can go through. I know it gets a little bit more involved. And again, it's not easy work, but it's not supposed to be.
There is a wonderful connection between magnificence and life purpose. There's been people that have been, for generations, one of the most commonly asked questions is, what am I here to do? Or what is my purpose in life? Sometimes people refer to it as their life's purpose, their soul's purpose, their soul's journey. You can even encompass it into one word. Dr. Wayne Dyer would refer to it as your dharma, why it is that you are here. With things now becoming clearer than they've been in maybe a really long period of time, could you share what you feel, especially right now, is the connection between stepping into your magnificence and also stepping into, and not just stepping into, but embodying your life's purpose?
Yeah, the whole life purpose thing to me, I find humorous, because the vast majority of people feel that if their life's purpose isn't going to change the world, that it's not a purpose worthy of living. That you have to be Mother Teresa, you have to be Martin Luther King, you have to be Wayne Dyer. I mean, you have to be somebody like that. The simple way to determine what your life purpose, well, I'll give you a couple of definitions in a minute. The simple way to determine what your life purpose is, what are you good at and what do you like to do? I mean, simply, whatever you're inspired to do, and I mean really inspired, I'm talking about that soul inspiration that you have, that's your life's purpose. It has nothing to do with being a great entertainer or having some title that you all of a sudden get. You say, well, I was destined to be the president of the United States. That's my life's purpose. No, it's not. That happens to be the role that somebody takes on to fulfill their life's purpose. That gives them it's the vehicle through which life purpose is going to be expressed. I believe the purpose of life, why any of us are here, and I got this through one of my morning walks when I asked the question, because I was really frustrated. Actually, this was an evening. I was frustrated one evening because of all the stuff that was happening around the world. And so I asked the question, I said, what is this all about? This is ridiculous that we're having to live through this. And immediately the answer I got was, the purpose of life is the progressive realization of the truth. Quite simply, it's the progressive realization of the truth. So it's for each of us to work through that realization to get to our individual, our respective truth on the way to the truth, whatever that is, the big truth. How we do that is what we call our life purpose. So how do I get to my truth? I do it by doing what I am comfortable with and what I love to do, which is speaking and talking and writing. And that doesn't mean that speaking, talking, and writing is my life's purpose. That's the vehicle through which I am fulfilling my life's purpose, which is to discover who I am and what I'm all about, and to get to my truth. I could do that as a janitor. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean that my life purpose would be being a janitor. It would be, no, my life purpose is discovering who I am through this career choice, if you will, or this vehicle that I've been given to gain a greater understanding of who I am and what I'm all about. And that's why I say that every life is absolutely perfect for the person or the soul, if you will, that's having those life experiences. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's absolutely perfect. But we also have the opportunity for choice, and we can choose to do something different. We've all done something in life that we weren't comfortable with, but we go through that process because now we know what we don't want to do. And so then it frees us from having that as a distraction to, okay, so what now is showing up for me? What now do I feel really good about? And what am I good at? Now, with that, a lot of people will say, well, I can't pay my bills with that. You know, if that's my life's purpose, I can't pay my bills. Well, I want somebody to show me where it says that your life's purpose has to pay your bills. There's nothing that says that. That's something we've attached to it. That if I can't make money doing this, therefore it's not worthy of anything. And yet we have this strong inspiration, this strong sense of this is what I should be doing. What I have discovered is that when we give that, whatever that is that wants to be expressed through us, which to me is that purpose, if you will, when we give it space to be expressed, it expands. And then opportunities we never dreamt of that would allow that expression to be greater and greater and greater could open up into something that provides you with income that would allow you to live the life that you want to live. But we've got to give it the space to do it. And we've got to trust in the process. There's 41 quotes in my book, and they've all come from my early morning walks. The one that resonates probably as strongly with me as any of them is that we wouldn't be inspired to do something if it wasn't intended to be. And I believe that wholeheartedly, because I believe in inspiration. And I'm not talking about whims. I'm talking about those soul inspirations. There's intention behind that. So real quick, again, on a morning walk, I got that part of that quote. We wouldn't be inspired to do something if it wasn't intended to be. And I was struggling with what it was that I was trying to accomplish. Actually, I was writing my book. I was struggling with what I was trying to accomplish at the time. And I said, okay, I know I'm intended to do this. I'm going to continue writing the book, but why am I having so much trouble with it? Why am I not having maybe the success that I wanted to have? So again, went on a walk and I said, I got the first half. I wouldn't be inspired to do something that wasn't intended to be. I'm inspired to write this book, therefore I'm writing it. Why am I struggling? And then the second part of the quote came in and it said that if it is intended to be, all for it to be is provided. And I was like, so I let it go. And now I'm just open to whatever shows up. I pay attention to it. I grab hold of it. And that's the engagement part of it. I'm not afraid of it. And to me, that's the stepping into your magnificence. It's all those things that are showing up to benefit each one of us individually and collectively that allow us to live in full expression of our truth on the way to the truth, whatever that is. And we'll all get there. Nobody fails. Nobody falls short. Nobody loses. Everybody gets there.
I feel one of the things that, one of the things that I always love doing at Empowered Publicity, and specifically here on the Shining Stars series, is to be able to set out a heartfelt vision and intention for all of our listeners and viewers, for all of our friends and neighbors. And, one of the things that I encourage all of you who are tuning in either live or you're catching the replay of episode number 10 of the Shining Stars series is to be able to acknowledge the fact that there is so much good that is coming into your life and will be coming into your life. And I think this is something that it ties into the belief of the best things happen when you least expect it. Like, honestly, Jim, it took me, we'll just basically say, 38, 39 earthly years. I'm turning 39 next month, actually.
You're just a baby.
Right. But that's honestly not bad. Sometimes people have to repeat the cycle and lifetimes over to kind of get to that point where it's like, wow, I feel that the best things happen in life when you least expect it. Again, kind of staying on this thread, what would be some things that you would share with our listeners and viewers and our friends and neighbors, especially when it comes to that? Because we've talked about stepping into your magnificence. We've talked about being your authentic self. We're talking about living your life in full expression, allowing, any of the sorts of old stories or old beliefs that we told ourselves, especially when it comes to our life purpose, like, I have to do this, and this has to be the vehicle. This is how I have to make the money, only through this. It feels like, the reins are being let go of, so to speak. How can we integrate this as our new normal? It's not just like this little cool spiritual science experiment where this can be something that we can embody as our new practice and our new way of being, our new life.
Yeah, there's another quote that I use in my book that kind of encompasses all of that, and that is that we become too comfortable in our discomfort. So many people right now, and I'll use the word unhappy because I think that's a word that we all kind of resonate with when we're just not really fulfilled and doing all the things that we want to do. So the way that we defend our misery at the expense of our happiness is, I could have something that I'm really drawn towards, that I really, really want to do. But I'll start saying, well, I can't do that because I don't have enough money. I can't do that because I don't have enough time. I can't do that until this happens. I can't do that because I have obligations in this job. Well, I'm defending my misery. My misery is the status quo. My misery is staying in a situation that I find uncomfortable, even though it might be paying my bills and it might be something I've done for a long time. I'm not comfortable with it. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's not exactly where I want to be and what I want to be doing. So by defending that, saying I have to, we're not allowing ourselves that opportunity to step into our magnificence, which is where the limitless possibilities exist. Now, you were talking earlier, and I think this is a big part of what's happening with the great pause that we've had during COVID. And that is that part of what most people are experiencing is profound grief. And most people don't look at it, the way that we look at grief in terms of if you lose a loved one. But we've lost life in the way that it was, and it will never go back there. And so people are struggling to hold on to that life as it was. It'll never go back there. Okay, but so what? So we're not going to have the life that we want. Were you happy with your life? And that's a question I would have everybody ask themselves. If you could separate it and you say, pre-COVID, was I happy with everything that was going on? Did I enjoy my job? Were my relationships where I wanted them to be? Was I pursuing the goals and the inspirations that I have to the degree that I want to? And then now the question is, okay, here I am. Now, what can I do moving forward? What's the life that I want to have, that I want to experience? Understand that all you have right now is this current reality. So wherever you are right now, everything that happened to this moment no longer matters. It doesn't, because we can always make a decision right now that totally changes everything. So how do we get into our magnificence? You make a decision, that's what you want. You don't allow those limiting thoughts and beliefs to hold you back. You catch them when you hear yourself saying them, or when somebody else says it to you, you catch it and you go, no, that's not me. I don't know who you're talking about, but that's not me. Who I am is, and what I am doing with my life and where I'm moving, what I'm moving towards is whatever that positive, magnificent thing is that you want to do. But I think the hardest thing is for people to let go. And I thought when you were showing your hand, where's my camera? Showing your hand grasping like that, the analogy that can be used with that too is when you're grasping something, you can't grab anything else. So until you let go of what's in your hand, you don't have the ability to grab onto what's more beneficial to you.
And I really believe that when you let go of all that, like, let's just say if there's something or some things that are trying to come into your life and you're doing what I like to call the Marcel Marceau. Marcel Marceau, where does that come from, right? But you basically go like this. You're trying to control everything, right? You're trying to, instead of go with the flow, like Dr. Wayne Dyer would say, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. We quoted that infamous nursery rhyme, right? We're trying to, control the stream, control the energy, and we can't do that. But when we let go of that, it's like whatever it is. I know that Esther Hicks, when she channels Abraham, she talks about your vortex, right? And it's like, many people had asked for a long period of time, okay, well, something's in my vortex. How can I beam it down into my earthly reality? And I feel that, again, these are the things that we kind of made a little bit more complex than what they needed to be, right? I know, like, literally almost a year ago, I said, you know what, I'm going to go to Seattle, Washington not the CN Tower that's in Toronto, the Space Needle, I'm going to go up 600 feet in the air to my vortex and bring the stuff down from the sky and bring it down into my earthly reality. That was just a little visual that I did, but you don't have to go to the Space Needle to get up what's in your vortex and bring that down into your earthly reality. Just imagine, envision that everything that your heart desires is already here, and you can just connect with that energy, right? And that's, one of my favorite books. It's a perfect complement to The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression, which, by the way, is now available at Amazon.com. By the way, you can leave your 5-star review if you feel guided. Dr. Wayne Dyer's wish is fulfilled. He says that, to live your life as if whatever it is that your heart is desiring, it's already a done deal. So as I've already shared with you and with our friends and neighbors, our listeners and viewers, our shining stars, I'm going to be headed out to San Diego very shortly, right? And there could be the part of me that would be like, how's it going to happen? Where is the place going to be? How's all of this stuff? And it's like, I've already accepted, done deal, already happened. It's just a matter of, listening, paying attention, being open to receive, open heart, open mind, open ears, open eyes, and just really trusting the overall process. Jim, one of the things that we love doing many things here at Empower Publicity and the Shining Stars series, of course, as a tip of the cap, a sign of respect, is an homage to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys a few years before he made his transition. And he also did this on several episodes of The Neighborhood and other interviews that he did. He encouraged all of us to take, whether it be 10 seconds, 30 seconds, or even a full minute, to close our eyes and to ask ourselves and to remember, more importantly, who helped love us into being. So, Jim, because of course, we've been talking about a lot of great stuff, a lot of deep stuff here tonight and this week and this month on the Shining Stars series. Who are some of the people that come to mind? Who are some of your favorite neighbors that have helped love you, Jim Phillips, into being?
Because of my perspective on life, I hold that respect for everybody that's been in my life, because I recognize that anybody and everybody that comes into my life is there for that purpose, just as I'm there in their life for that purpose. And that's each of us loving, respecting, and honoring one another for who we are and who we're trying to be. Now, more specifically, obviously my parents and my family have been there, although interesting for me, it wasn't always a positive experience, but it was an experience that gave me the opportunity to become more discerning of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to experience and express in the world. So it's still love, but maybe it wasn't in the same way that other people would look at it and say, well, this is how that supported you. It supported me in that it gave me what I needed to do what it was that I eventually ended up doing. But I've had the opportunity to meet some incredible people and had wonderful conversations with people. I mean, you and I've had conversations. I told you I had the conversation with Art yesterday, and I thought that was phenomenal. So anybody like that is just open and receptive and just looking at life with their heart wide open, is because that's where the love's going to come from. So anybody that I can engage with in that way, that's where that support comes from. And you've been talking about Wayne Dyer. I had an interesting experience where I have met Wayne Dyer and I talked to him, but it happened to be while we were both standing in the men's room at urinals. So it was, what a visual for everybody who wants that. But we were having a conversation. It was hilarious. And so, I've had that opportunity, and he just laughs. He's just this regular guy. And, I was talking to him about some things that I had seen about him the first time he was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, because people who don't know him from way back in the day, he had a humongous ego. He was really, really self-centered. And if you paid attention to his life, he made a huge transition from who he was and what he was doing to become this incredibly open and receptive and spiritual person. And his journey just happened to play out in public, the way that all happened. But, it sounds like I'm kind of dodging your question. I'm not. I don't have, any one or two people that I can say this was the catalyst for me. It's just been so many people that I've met and had the opportunity to interact with that I mean, I could think of elementary school teachers who had an impact on me. And I could say, that was some of the love that I got too, but I wasn't aware of it. But of course, when you reflect on it, you see, well, that person was there for me because it enabled me to do whatever, or to get to wherever I am. And I think that if each of us could look at life through the honor and respect of one another, for the fact, number one, that we've all chosen to be here, for how we've chosen to journey through life, for the experiences we've chosen to have, recognizing that everything that we each have in our lives is intended for us because it's going to give us the life experience our soul has intended for us. There shouldn't be any judgment. Nobody's right or wrong. Everybody's going through this, doing the best they can with what's being put in front of them. And I firmly believe that that's where we are right now on that tipping point that I mentioned earlier, where the more we can honor and respect each other and really recognize this is not about one of us above anybody else or any group above anybody else. This is all about us collectively getting this true understanding about what life is all about, who we are, how we're here to support one another, love one another, respect one another. And then I'll close on this because I know we're at the end of the time. I've had people ask me questions like, how can we possibly have peace on earth? Well, the answer is simple. You choose to. If every person on the planet woke up tomorrow morning and said, today, for the rest of my living days, I will be peaceful, there is peace on earth. It's that simple. And that's why I say that it's personal responsibility, that it's the key to everything. Now, what's the challenge with that? Somebody will say, well, I'm not going to do it because he won't do it, or I'm not going to do it because she won't do it. And if she's not going to do it, why should I give up whatever? And so that's where we get caught up in all this judgment and all this criticism and things that really serve no purpose other than to bring it to our attention. But if we intentionally make the decision to be, Gandhi said it, be the experience you want to see in life. I mean, be that what you want to, something like that. Be what you desire to see in the world. Be the change you desire to see, I think is what it was. And that's all we have to do. But then it's a conscious effort. It doesn't just happen. And I think that's how we get there. I think we're on the way. I think we've got some way to go, but I think we're on the way. And I think conversations like this open up a lot of people more to what's possible. And when we're open to what's possible, then we start doing those things that we once thought were impossible. And then we're stepping into our magnificence and living life the way it was intended to be lived.
Of the many things that I enjoy just about these Shining Star series experiences, and the reason why they're once a month is there's just so much to digest, so much to be able to integrate and to just really, really enjoy. So this has been a tremendous experience tonight, Jim, but I actually have a special gift for you before we begin to wind down our time here. One of the things that we also love doing, we're expressing a lot of love. I mean, this is 6 years, right? So if you hear, me using some crutch words like, we love this at Empowered Publicity, or we enjoy doing this, this is just a lot of gratitude and appreciation over the past 72 months of opening up our hearts and being of service to you, our friends and our neighbors and our shining stars. We always like to have a little genie lamp here in our offices and here in our studios, just for no particular reason, right? I feel that, and again, this is a little bit of a tip of the cap to Dr. Wayne Dyer. I feel that all of us are here to help one another walk each other home. It's a little Ram Dass right there. Right. But at the same point, we're here to help one another bring our heartfelt desires and wishes into reality. So, Jim, you have helped people to create great strategies for their life. And you can, of course, mention your website, how people can connect with you momentarily. You're being given 3 wishes yourself this evening and this weekend. You've given for a long period of time. So now it's your time to receive, maybe more than you ever have in your entire life. So these wishes, they can be for yourself. They can be for your family back home in Buffalo. Right. I will mention this is an amazing thing. Like I found out there's a movie theater here in the Buffalo area that's actually opening up on Friday, and they're playing old school movies because there's really nothing else that's just coming out right now. So in celebration of the 35th anniversary of Back to the Future, they're actually playing that on the silver screen, and I'm like, hot diggity. That's my weekend plan. So I just share that because if you wanted to put out, a wish for your family back home in Buffalo, or even a collective wish for the planet, those who are wanting to step into their magnificence, to live their life in full expression. You're being given 3 wishes here tonight and this week. What would those be, Jim?
Wow. The first thing that came to mind, and I honestly don't tend to think of wishes being specifically for me, because I feel like I've been very blessed in my life. But because of the work that I do, and because of the energy I feel, because I'm living outside of Washington, D.C., where the energy is really heavy based on all the things that are going on, the one wish that I would have is that we collectively would work through the chaos that is surfacing right now, and surfacing at a greater scale than it ever has in my lifetime. It has to surface, so we have to allow it. It's not like wishing it to go away, but that it would surface, that we would gain from it what we are to gain, that we would be done with it, and that we would now start to create the life that we've all said that we wanted to have, and do all those things that are necessary for each of us to live that life experience that we say we want to have. And of course, then collectively, that would be the life experience of everybody on the planet. So I think that would be the primary wish that I would have, is just allowing us to move through this process we're going through right now as quickly, but with the benefit that we have to have that's going to come from it, that then would allow us to create the better world that I think we all desire.
I agree. Those are some really heartfelt wishes. And again, we encourage all of you who are tuning in this evening and this week, if especially you're a new member of our neighborhood here at Empowered Publicity, to take the time to close your eyes and to give yourself the permission to be able to receive, and to remember that you can step into your magnificence, and you're already magnificent right now, to remember those that helped love you into being, and to also put out those intentions, those heartfelt wishes, because the way that things are happening right now, it's kind of like, you go through a drive-through and you ask for your order. I would like the chicken Cobb salad with, a bottled water, and you go through and you pick up your order. The old school analogy was be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. Now it's be careful what you ask for, because you will get it. But be open to the fact if it comes in a different package, if it comes in a different form, so to speak. Jim, I feel that we could have like 15 different conversations, and they would all be amazingly energetically equivalent, if not even greater and greater. For those who want to be able to work alongside you, to be able to do their part to take those necessary next steps, but maybe would need a little bit of additional support. You do such amazing work with people all across the country, around the world. How can people connect with you?
Well, the easiest way is you can go to my Facebook page. So I've got a Facebook page. You can just find me on there. But my website's livinginfullexpression.com, or you can email me directly at jim@livinginfullexpression.com. I have a lot of information on my website. You can sign up for a newsletter that I do that's called Thoughts, Musings, and Updates, where that comes out weekly. I typically have a video in that as well. But if somebody wants to work with me as a life strategist, because you're working through whatever life has thrown at you, or that you've gotten to a point in life where you feel that life has to be better than what you've experienced, not that it's been bad, but that it can be better. That's really what I do. I work with people one-on-one. I do group presentations as well, but it's about helping people understand what's been misunderstood, to allow them to live life fully and completely as who they are. And that, getting back to the theme of this show, is allowing people to step into their magnificence and live from that. I'm easy to find.
We are going to be, where we already have included the links below, Jim's website, in addition to the Amazon link, if you want to be able to purchase your own copy of The Key to Life Living in Full Expression, which, by the way, yes, you can also take the time to take your Sharpie, your highlighter, your pen, and just mark up the book, so to speak, just like I did, because then you know that you're making progress. And one of the really good feelings, especially, is when you can look back. Like, I take a look at just some notes here that I put in your book. I'm going to go back to one, actually, and just share it here. This goes back to March 2nd, 2020. And I put big stars around forgiveness is the conscious choice to be free. And I smile looking on that 4 months later, and it's like, wow, you can take a look at how much that you've, how far that you have moved through over the course of just these past 4 months. So again, this is a great book to be able to, come back to again and again, and to look back to see how far that you have come. We're going to be continuing on this 6-year anniversary celebration, this month-long celebration to give back to you, our friends and neighbors, and yes, our fellow shining stars. Yes, it just went from blue to red. Tomorrow, this Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, one of our favorite numbers, lucky number 13, an all-new edition of the Empowered Publicity Story Time with Mr. Jonathan. Now, if you're tuning in this week and you're wondering exactly what that is, we'd love to be able to share brand new, heart-centered and heartfelt children's books with your little ones, and of course, share valuable lessons from the heart of our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers. So one of our featured children's authors here at Empowered Publicity, one of our favorite neighbors all the way from Quebec, Canada, Patrick Ogwin, the creator of Tools from the Heart, giving us the blessing to be able to share his brand new release as part of the Tools of the Heart children's book series, Colin's Courage. And we're going to be sharing Mr. Rogers' valuable lessons on courage. And let us not forget, of course, you go back, I believe it was 52 years almost when Mr. Rogers actually testified in front of the, I forget if it was the Congress or the Senate, but he was trying to get the green light on $20 million of funding that would basically help PBS ensure some sustainability. So Mr. Rogers had to move through some difficult times in his life, and he had to step into some courage as well. So that is tomorrow, episode number 13 of the Empowered Publicity Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. We're excited for episode number 85 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, this forthcoming Monday, July the 20th. One of our newest neighbors in Sacramento, California, Emmy-nominated anchor and reporter and award-winning children's author Leticia Ordaz is going to be joining us to share her brand new children's book, The Adventures of Mr. McCall. We're going to be talking about adventure. Well, this is kind of like a theme. Like this whole entire month has been one great adventure. These past 6 years have been such an incredible adventure. And especially for our friends and neighbors who are tuning in and you're learning about Empowered Publicity for the first time, a special and huge thank you to one of the most amazing children's authors on planet Earth, one of the highly anticipated children's books of 2020. And yes, it has a Mr. Rogers connection, go figure. But Caldecott award-winning children's author and illustrator Matthew Cordell joined us this past Monday on episode number 84 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. That's now available at empoweredpublicity.com via our official Facebook page or our YouTube channel. And such a fantastic interview. Nearly 3,000 people, 3,000 amazing friends and neighbors across the country and around the world, just alone since Monday, have actually checked out that interview. So if you are enjoying what you are experiencing, what you're feeling, what you're seeing tonight here on the Shining Stars series, we'll be talking about Mr. Rogers a little bit more so next month. Go figure. But if you are an inspirational author, if you are a spiritual author, and you would like to be able to share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new inspirational or spiritual book here on the Shining Star series, you can connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com. You can stay connected with us via any of our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity, Twitter at empowered_PR. If you are an if you are a children's author and you would like for us to be able to share your brand new children's book on a future edition of the Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, you know how to connect with us. If you are a children's author and you would like to share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new children's book, all of these you can be a part of the Empowered Publicity family. You would like to come on board the Children's Book Spotlight series as we're already planning out the final quarter of the year. We'll be celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the Children's Book Spotlight series this fall. You know how to connect with us. And then lastly, if you are an inspirational author, spiritual author, or a children's author, and you would like to learn a little bit more about Empowered Publicity and how we can be of service to you in your next steps. If you would like to learn more information about our media coaching and mentoring program, how we can help you facilitate your own virtual media tour, or if you would like to set up a book media tour in a city of your choosing, even in your own backyard, you can connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com. You can schedule your own 30-minute discovery call and again, see how we can be of service to you. Over the course of the next several weeks, we will be sharing some amazing interviews with some of our favorite neighbors in the wonderful world of media that Jim is actually going to be a part of. including a wonderful conversation with one of our favorite neighbors, Art Costello, who had the opportunities to be one of our listeners and viewers here this evening and this week. So again, stay connected with us here at Empowered Publicity, because if you love Jim Phillips, you will be seeing plenty more of Jim Phillips over the course of the coming weeks and the coming months ahead. Let us not forget the message, one of the primary messages of our favorite neighbor from the other side. Very much his heart, his spirit are very much present. Mr. Rogers reminds all of us, especially right now, that you are perfect. You are imperfectly perfect. You are perfect, whole, healthy, complete, that you are loved, you are special just the way that you are. That I like you just the way that you are. But remember, we never fly alone. We're never solo here on the Shining Star series. So we have two favorite series of numbers, 143 and 243. Somehow for the rest of Mr. Rogers' natural adult life, he weighed 143 pounds. Well, it also means I love you. There is one letter in I, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. But of course, since Jim took some time to be our featured guest here this month on the Shining Star series, we have 243, which means that we love you. Lastly, if this message has inspired you, if it's brought more love and compassion into your mind, your heart, your body, your soul, if it's completely shifted the course of your week or even the course of these past 4 months, if you now know in your heart and with every fiber of your being that you can step into your own magnificence and you want to pay it forward and you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, well, Jim and I encourage you to share our heartfelt conversation. That is episode number 10 of the Empowered Publicity Shining Star series on Facebook. If you happen to be watching us on Facebook, or if you're catching us on YouTube, thank you for the subscription, by the way. You can share any way that you watch and listen to this interview on your favorite social media platforms of choice. So again, one last time before we hop aboard the trolley, the brand new release once again, The Key to Life, Living in Full Expression. It is now available at Amazon.com. You can leave your own 5-star review if you feel guided to do so. You can head on over to Jim's official website, livingInFullExpression.com. The links are below in the comments below. Such a fantastic experience, such a great conversation with Jim. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for all of your support throughout the course of these past several weeks as we have been looking back, being in the present moment, and looking ahead. Just all of the wonderful people, our friends, our neighbors, our fellow Shining Stars that have helped to support Empowered Publicity, that have helped us to open our heart so that we can express and give back and be PR of the heart. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart in the process. And again, somehow we managed to hop and fit all aboard on this trolley here, and it travels by beams of light. So we will talk to you, our friends and neighbors and our Shining Stars, tomorrow night, this Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, again for episode number 13 of the Storytime with Mr. Jonathan, where I'll be sharing Patrick Ogwin's Collins Courage from the Tools of the Heart series and sharing Mr. Rogers' valuable lessons on courage. And then this forthcoming Monday, July the 20th, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, where award-winning children's author, Emmy-nominated anchor and reporter Leticia Ordaz will be talking about her brand new children's book, The Adventures of Mr. McCall. Until then, friends and neighbors, thank you very much for shining your light and remembering that you too are a shining star in this world. We'll talk to you once again very soon. Thanks again for your time and for your continued support of Empowered Publicity. Have a wonderful evening and a great start to your Thursday. Take care.